Welcome back to my gardening basics video series. I am finally to my favorite part, and I will try to rein myself in and not make this, 2 hours long, but I just really am excited to talk about this topic. So we're finally going to talk about seed starting supplies. So this is going to be your soil, your container, all of the things you need to get your seed started. If you are planning on just buying your starts from a nursery or wherever, you can probably skip this video. This is pretty much just about seed starting. So the first thing we're going to talk about is containers. There are so many options when it comes to containers, and you don't have to spend any money on it if you don't want to. So my first option I want to talk about is going to be like the cheap Jiffy Sets you see at Walmart or Tractor Supply. I know our local garden center has some. I'm not sure if the ones in surrounding towns do. I've never really looked, but you can get them just about anywhere. Even our True Value here has some, and they're usually on sale. So they are the ones that have that bottom tray, the inserts, like the 72 cell inserts, and then a humidity dome to go over the top. Those are fantastic for starting. If it is the 72 cell one, those cells are pretty little, so you're going to have to up pot those most likely, because a tomato plant, pepper plant is not gonna be able to live in that tiny little cell for very long. So keep in mind, if you do start with those, you may need to up pot those in the future. But if you are going to up pot them, you can do that in a very budget-friendly way. You can use solo cups or old pots, or go to the recycling center and get some old yogurt containers. There are several options for up potting and not having to spend money on that as well. Another idea that works really well and that I have done a lot of and will continue to do for probably ever is reusing old containers. So I have a never-ending supply of these old containers that are probably 3 years old, and I just, whenever I'm done with my stack, them back up and put them in my garage. And so I use these to pot up in a lot, and you can use these are a great option for starting seeds. You will want to make sure that they have good drainage, whatever you're using. If you're going to use some yogurt containers, or if you're going to use some solo cups or cups, punch some drainage holes in the bottom. And if they are repurposed, make sure you clean them well so that they are not bringing any disease from last year into this year. One downfall is that they may not fit into your space well. So like these cups don't really fit in my trays well. They are wonderful, they're big, they're tall, they're a great size for up potting, but I don't really have anything that holds them well. So keep that in mind. These are some other 6 cell, larger 6 cell trays that, or inserts, cells, whatever, that I have, and I probably have several more somewhere. I just have stuff everywhere, and you just use what you have. I got some stuff last year, and I probably used those 3 times last year, starting more and starting more and starting more, and they've held up quite well. Keep in mind, they will probably only hold up for a year or two and then kind of crack or break down, and so they're not a long-term solution. Another thing that I have used in the past that I absolutely love and has worked great for me, and they have been well loved, I've had them for probably 4 years, is these, I'm pretty sure they're Burpee brand containers. So clearly these did not get cleaned well, but these are really good. They're a really good size. They're not as deep as I would like them to be, but they're like 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch probably. I would say 2.5 by 2.5. And there's an 8 cell, there's like an 8 cell and a 16 cell, and then they have like a small cell 16 cell, nope, whatever it is, 36 probably. And so it's smaller ones that will need to be up potted, but they're all really great options, and they do last a long time. This bottom part is rubber, great drainage holes. So when you're ready to transplant into the garden, all you do is push this little bottom part up and the plant pops right up. I've never had any issues with these. They are fantastic. Another bonus is that you can, I'm not gonna do it because it's full of dirt, but you can flip this over on top of it and use the base as a humidity dome for when you are trying to get your seeds started. These store really nicely. All of these get stacked together, all of these get stacked together, and then these just sit in there, and so they stack together and store really well. Obviously, I did not do a great job cleaning it up, and before I use them again, I will definitely want to do that. But these, I think I got these at Tractor Supply. You can order them online. Great option right here. So this year, I am graduating to the big leagues. I got some Bootstrap Farmer containers, and I'm really excited about these. So these are the 6-cell containers. These are gonna fit in a 10-20 flat. Yeah, 10-20 flat, and there's gonna be basically 72. It'll basically be a 72 cell tray. These are really nice because you can plant 1 pack to flowers, 1 pack to lettuce, 1 pack to tomatoes, and then just whenever these are ready, even if your flowers aren't ready to be transplanted or up potted and your tomatoes are, just pull these out and move on with them. And this also makes it really easy for bottom watering because you want to water at the bottom of your tray so that you're not getting your plants wet and the water is hitting the top of them and kind of bending them down and breaking your little seedlings. So these make it really easy for bottom watering because you can just pick one of these up and move it and fill the tray with water, set it back in, and then everything just soaks up the water from the bottom. And that's the healthiest way to water your plants. These are also really nice because they have this large hole at the bottom where you just stick your finger in to pop that plant up, just like with my burpee trays. They're just gonna pop right out of there and you're gonna have a beautiful little root system growing. These little holes here, there we go. So these little holes on the side are to help oxygen get to the roots. So it's gonna help air prune your plant as well. So they're gonna have a really healthy root system and not be root bound and wrapped. And so I'm really excited to try these out this year. Another thing I got from Bootstrap Farmer is these 2-inch, 2.5-inch, I don't remember. These little pots, they are solid. They are not breaking. Like, there's a little bit of give there, but there's just enough that I'll be able to get the plant out, and that's about it. Great drainage holes. And I have the inserts and the trays for these, and I also have the humidity domes that go on top. So this is kind of my big girl set because I'm finally at that point where I feel like I am ready to have a whole nice set. So I will mostly be using these 2 things this year, but fear not, I will still be going back to my old pots that I'll be reusing until I can't reuse them anymore. And I will actually be using these quite a bit. I will be going to a plant sale this year again, and so all of my stuff for that will be started in these trays and then up potted to these, unless it's like flowers or herbs. I might do some 4-packs or 6-packs, get some of basically these. I might order some packs of these online and do some of those for like petunias or marigolds and herbs. But mostly what I'm doing is tomatoes and some peppers. So those will all be started in this. And then when they are growing out of these, they will be potted up into these. They're super cheap. They look nice. They're clean. They're really easy to put drainage holes in. So this is what all of my plants will be sold in. The next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and I don't have mine with me, I do have one, and I do love it. If you're looking for a really eco-friendly option for starting seeds, definitely look into soil blocking. Try it, see how it goes, and if it doesn't work, add more water to the soil. I promise it will work. I absolutely love the idea of soil blocking, and I will probably continue to do soil blocking, but it's only useful for me for certain things like flowers and lettuce. You know, it's not really sustainable for a tomato. You could start a tomato in the soil block, but you're going to have to pot it up into something larger. So with soil blocks, there is this little like 20 block maker, little teeny tiny blocks, like 1/2 inch blocks, and you can use those for starting teeny tiny seeds like snapdragons. And then once they've germinated in those tiny blocks, they make a larger soil blocker that's like 2.5 inches or 2 inches, and you make those, and then you can put the little soil block right inside of the bigger soil block to basically up pot your seedling. And that way you're not really disturbing the root system, and it's just a really sustainable way of growing your plants. I think they even have like really big soil blockers that are like 4 inch by 4 inch. I haven't seen any of those, but I know they have them out there somewhere. So these are all also ideas, and you buy your soil blocker, you're gonna have that thing forever. They're really hardy, they're metal, and they're not gonna break down. So you're gonna have that forever. The only thing you might need to get would be some 10-20 trays or some kind of tray to put your soil blocks on. With soil blocks, you are gonna have to bottom water. It is really, really hard to top water those without kind of breaking down the blocks. And because they're not in a container, they do dry out faster. So you're gonna really have to keep an eye on the moisture level of the soil to ensure that they don't dry out. Okay, now we're done with containers. Moving on to water. So I talked a lot about bottom watering. Before we get to bottom watering, we need to talk about watering your seed in once you've just planted it. You need to keep it moist, which when I will do a whole seed starting, you know, sometime in February, I will be starting my seeds and I will do some videos then. But I like to get my soil moist when I am starting everything. I get it wet before I put it in my trays, because when you get that soil out of the bag, it's gonna be super, super dry, and it actually makes it hydrophobic, which means it doesn't want to suck water up. So you put that dry soil into your container and you water it. Only this much is gonna be wet. You're gonna put water on it and say, oh yeah, that's got water sitting on top, it's good. Only this much is wet. This part, still dry. Not really gonna get any wetter. It might come down, your water level might come down to here. So what I like to do is get my soil wet before I put it in my pot. Yes, it's muddy, it's messy, it's fun though. Get my kids out there and they'll be making mud patties and making mud snow cones. Just have them stuff the mud in the cup for you. So get the soil wet before you put it in the cup, before you put the seed on. So then you put your seed in the cup, and with most seeds, you're gonna put a little layer of soil over it. I will do dry soil for that, or just whatever I have. If you've got some wet, use dry. But then what you don't want to do is take your watering can and dump a bunch of water on top, because it will wash away the seed. It will just move the dirt out of the way. That big splash of water will dislodge your seed, wash it out, or bring it to the surface. It will float. It will not germinate. So what you need to do instead is use a spray bottle. Get your cheap little spray bottle. I just got this last year and it is a game changer for me, because I spent an hour in here going So I got this off Amazon for like $10 or something. This is an automatic spray bottle. So you click it and it just sends a nice little shoot out. It's rechargeable. Got a little battery meter up here. It's adjustable, so you can figure out what kind of spray you want. So you just want to mist the top of your seeds, mist the top of your trays just so it is wet, and kind of get your seed to sit in there well. And then you're going to want to keep misting that every day, especially if you don't have a humidity dome. You just need to keep your seed moist until it germinates. Once it germinates, you take the humidity dome off and you start bottom watering. You know, if you have a couple of them that are up and a couple that are not, wait till they're all up and then take the dome off. It's not really gonna hurt anything. And then start bottom watering. So fill up the water in the bottom. Obviously you don't want it swimming in water, but just give it a little bit of water every day so that your soil stays moist and your seedling doesn't have to reach too far and get dried out trying to reach clear to the bottom for water. Water, humidity dome, we touched on that. Another thing that a lot of people do use, I don't have any yet and I never have used them, but I might get some, is a heat mat. So a lot of seeds on a lot of the packets, it will tell you what temperature they germinate at. Okay, yeah. So here on my In My Gardener packet, you can see the germination temperature is 70 to 90 degrees. So that soil needs to be 70 to 90 degrees to get the seed to germinate. So when you have your seeds planted in your tray, you can set it on a heat mat. And then same with the humidity dome, as soon as that seedling is up, take that heat mat away. It's not using it anymore. That's just what it needs to germinate and come out of the seed. If you don't have one, it's fine. So I have a shelf. All of my seed starting stuff is right behind me, so I keep looking over there. So I have a 5-tier shelf, and when I start stuff, I just put it at the top because heat goes up. So I put it at the top where it is the warmest in the room. And then once it germinates, I'll move it down and put my next tray up there. So that's kind of how I just play the system, and I don't really need a heat mat. In the future, I might get one because I'm starting to do some things like flowers, and some of them need warmer soil to germinate. So not a big deal. If you're interested, you can definitely look into it, or if there's certain things you want to grow that do require a warmer soil temperature for germination, definitely look into it. I would highly recommend getting a heat mat with a timer or a temperature probe on it so that it doesn't, it'll keep the soil at the temperature that it needs to be. It's not too hot, not too cold. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to touch on is grow lights. I do have grow lights. I have 6 grow lights, at least, and you don't need these, but for me, they have been a game changer. If you don't have them, that's fine. Just find a window with some sunlight. That is just fine. One thing you might have to do is you might have to rotate your tray. So you put it like this, your window's over here, your plants are going to start reaching for the sunlight, reaching this way. So they're all going to be leaning this way. So then you got to turn it around to get them to reach back this way. So you might have to rotate your plants just a little bit. And it might be worth it to just go on Amazon and get some cheap grow lights. I will put up some information about the grow lights that I have. They have different lengths. They have 2 packs. They're really a good price. They all hook together, and I have them on a timer. They're just wonderful and a game changer for me. So with the grow lights, if you are choosing to do that, you do need to put the grow lights as close to your plants as possible. I mean, like touching them. It's not gonna hurt them for them to touch the lights, but you want to keep ideally the grow light like 2 inches, 3 inches above your plants. So if you can get lights on a pulley system where you can lower the light and raise the light as the plants grow. Mine are not. I have little blocks that I will set my trays up on, and as my plants grow, I will just move my trays. I'll take the blocks out from under my trays and move them back down. So, but they need to be right up under that light, because if the light is not close enough, the plant will start reaching for the light because it's not getting enough, and it will start to get really long and what is called leggy, and that is not a healthy plant. So I'll make sure to put some pictures in here, and I'm mostly talking about tomatoes is the biggest one that comes to mind, but they will all do it if they don't have light close enough. So Definitely make sure you can get that light close enough to them, and or move them closer to the light. But like with tomatoes, even if your plant is a little bit leggy, it's not the end of the world. You can up pot and just put that stem under the soil. So there are some hacks to get away with that. The next thing I want to talk to you about, this is kind of the last piece of equipment that is helpful to have, is a fan, just a little oscillating fan. Not a necessity, but it is really helpful. So you would want a fan on, not constantly and not hard, just a light little breeze going part of the day. Put it on the same timer as your grow lights. But what that's gonna do is it's just gonna give a little breeze, and it's just gonna move the plants a little bit and help strengthen up that stem. So you're gonna have healthier, stronger plants overall. Another thing it will do is kind of help dry out the soil. I've just talked about keeping everything moist, keeping everything moist. Yes, that is very important to make sure they have enough water. But another thing is you don't want to overwater. You don't want the plants to be sitting there in a bunch of water. So having the fan there ensures that they are not going to be too wet. Just kind of helps regulate the ecosystem a little bit. All right, the next thing is kind of a big deal. It doesn't have to be, but it kind of is. Soil. Seed starting soil. What is it? Do I really need it? Do you need it? I say yes. You can get away with not using it, but I really think it helps my germination rates and helps my plants be healthier from the start. So what is seed starting mix? So it doesn't really matter what kind you get. People have their favorites and so on and so forth. The one I have in here right now, and I think I have another kind somewhere else, is just the Miracle-Gro seed starting potting mix. The only difference with that is it is much more fine soil. It's very loose and very light, so that little seed does not have to work very hard to push up out of the soil. And that's kind of the goal, is to make it so easy for that plant that it doesn't have to work very hard. But the downfall of that seed starting mix is a lot of the times it doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. Because it's so fine, it's just a lot of light fluffy stuff, there's not a lot of nutrients in it. So down the road, you're going to have to pot up into a potting soil that does have more nutrients, or add in a fertilizer, which we'll talk about in a minute. So you can get away with using regular potting soil. Really doesn't matter. If you are having issues, or if it does have big kind of sticks or clumps in it, maybe try to sift some of those out and use the finer parts for starting your seeds. The other thing I wanted to talk about, you don't need it, but it's kind of a game changer for me. It's been really helpful to me, is some vermiculite. Goes a long ways. I've had that bag for 2 years, and I don't need much, and you don't need much. So this is vermiculite. And what vermiculite is, a lot of people will say to use vermiculite when you start your seeds, and then they'll say use perlite and sprinkle it on top when you start your seeds. That is not correct. So vermiculite is like little tiny sponges. Vermiculite helps absorb water and hold the water and release the water as the plants need it. So it just helps regulate the moisture of the soil is what it does. So with the vermiculite, I fill my pot with my wet soil. I put my seed in. I sprinkle a little bit of, just a little bit of soil on top to cover the seed. And then I take my vermiculite and just sprinkle a light layer of vermiculite on top. Just, you know, pepper on your potatoes. Just a light layer, because then that really helps control and regulate the moisture level of your soil when you're trying to get your seedling to germinate. So that is kind of, it's been a game changer for me. Didn't use it for the longest time. The last 2 years, I use it on everything. So people will say, you know, to use perlite. Perlite is not the same as vermiculite. Perlite is used in, it's kind of the opposite. It's used in a lot of potting soils to help aerate the soil. It does not soak up moisture and help contain the moisture and regulate the moisture. It is just little beads that help hold air pockets in the soil to help regulate oxygen and the dryness of the soil. So don't use perlite. It's a great additive for a lot of potting soils, especially if you're mixing your own, but it is not very good for topping off your seed starting trays with. You're going to want to use vermiculite for that. So then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was fertilizer. I do fertilize my seedlings. I started doing that last year and I really saw a difference. Not something you have to do, but something to keep in mind if you get your stuff going and you're getting towards the end of your 6 weeks with your tomatoes, you're about ready to plant them into your garden, but you have a frost coming in your 10-day forecast and you're like, okay, they're gonna have to spend another week inside at least. So what I like to do is I get some of the Espoma liquid fertilizer from Walmart or wherever. I know the garden center down here has a couple of liquid fertilizers. I don't remember what they are, but I just have a little jug of the Espoma and I just have had it for a couple years and got it. Don't use very much because when you're watering seedlings, you definitely don't want to use it at full concentration. So I will dilute it at least twice as much as you're supposed to, if not 3 times, especially the smaller the seedlings are, because you can give them too many nutrients and burn them up. So definitely don't fertilize them until they have some of their, they've got more leaves and they're a little bit bigger, and you'll be able to tell they're just not looking so great. They were doing great and they were awesome. They're big, huge plants, and then they're kind of going downhill and you're just not sure. Give them a little shot of fertilizer, maybe once a week, right towards the last couple weeks that you're going to have them indoors, and it will make a world of a difference. So that is all I have for this time. I did spend forever in this video, but I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something, and let me know if you have any questions and we will talk to you next time.